Ahoy! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another Command & Conquer Rivals patch notes analysis video. I do apologise that, as I'm sure you've noticed already, we have taken a bit of a step back in terms of the technicalities of this content, in that the facecam is not working and my audio probably doesn't sound quite as good as it usually does. I do apologise. It seems that every single piece of my tech is out to get me tonight, and this is actually about the third or fourth time that I'm recording this video, so fingers crossed it all works this time. Well, yes, I've had Redwood have dropped patch notes onto me for the latest patch. I'm not 100% certain when this goes live. I would usually expect it's usually Wednesdays that it goes live, and then it's that you can manually download it, and then it's Thursday that it requires an automatic update. The patch notes are a little bit skimped down this time, and when I spoke to NivMed about this, ultimately this is his last little patch as before he disappears from CNC Rivals and someone else will step in for doing Head of Balance. So this is kind of his last little farewell tweak just to get a few things underhand, shall we say. Now, as usual with my patch notes analysis videos, there are no flashy graphics here, nothing at all exciting. This is straight up my thoughts and opinions on what the patch notes mean and how this will affect your gameplay. As usual, pop your feedback and your thoughts into the comments below. Otherwise, because there's no flashy visuals or anything, you can just pop your phone down or your computer or whatever and just listen to my voice as I go over these thoughts and that. So anyway, without further ado, let us jump straight in, starting off with GDI. First up, the MLRS. Now, got a bit of a typo in the patch notes here, but players were using this to kill units it shouldn't be. This will help the MLRS keep its strength and lean into its specialization. Infantry damage has decreased from 70 to 40. That's a massive drop in MLRS damage to infantry. Quite frankly, there was no reason for it to be damaging infantry. That is not what it's supposed to do. It is very much an anti-vehicle unit. Does mean that, especially with the MLRS being a big part of many Fortress decks recently, that the MLRS does still have that key weakness, which is to infantry. There is no reason that an MLRS should be pummeling laser squads, and this is a change just to make sure that it isn't. Speaking of the Fortress decks, the MSV has had a very minor tone down as well, in that it's apparently has been proving to be problematic with reload units. Same old issue as we've always had with Jackson and Oksana, when recently they changed Jackson and Oksana to no longer affect reload units like the Orca, the Stealth Tank, and the MLRS so much. They've made that change now also to the MSV. This means that the reload time boost is half of what it was before. Yes, an MSV still boosts reload time, it just doesn't boost it quite as well as it used to. This means that an MSV and an MLRS is still a great combo, even though the MLRS is going to be doing slightly less damage to infantry now, and it will reload slightly slower than it was before. Ultimately, that's still going to be a great combo. The Fortress deck is still going to be there. It just means that your MLRS isn't going to be reloading at a ridiculous rate and punching infantry into the dirt. Good change as far as I'm concerned. Then the Shatterer. The Shatter is incredible when defending. While we want to keep that, we want players to be more proactive in setting it up. Speed down from fast to average. This, in fairness, I was in two minds about, but the more and more I think on it, the more I am for this change. Ultimately, Shatterers are a solid unit. Yes, you do not want to be pushing Shatterers into Grenadiers or Mutant Marauders. They will lose. That has always been the case. Going from fast down to average means you need to think ahead a little bit with your Shatterers. It's not just a case of point them in the right direction, move them in sort of as and when. You need to think about where you best want them, and the fact that they can hover over lakes, that's a big thing for Shatterers. It means you can get them into a position that most other units other than air can't get to. This just means now that the MSV Fortress deck, you actually have to plan it ahead. You can't just ram that MSV forward and then ram all of your units into place. That's a good change for me. It means Shatterers are still going to be solid in that MSV deck, possibly even more so than they were before, simply because now that MSV boost is going to be bigger. to the Shatterer. They're going to, that it's going to be a much more significant speed boost. But also, I just think the Shatterer is in a really good place now as it is. And this, to me, just stops them being that a little bit too dominant and pushes them into a place where ultimately you want them to be supported. You want to get them into position before your enemy gets the infantry in. I'm all for this change. I don't think it takes Shatterers out of the meta at all. I think it just downs them that little touch, so they're not quite so oppressive. Now, Zone Troopers get a revert as well. Now, if you remember, we jumped back to recently, to patch notes where the Zone Troopers, they pretty much doubled their rate of fire, but halved their attack damage. This made them better at dealing with things like drones, and just meant they could snipe a few extra shots off here and there. They've decided that they are due to issues with breakpoints and the lack of non-tech counters to Zone Troopers, and they have reverted this back. This, I'm in two minds about. I actually prefer Zone Troopers and Cyborgs having that slower rate of fire. I think that's a better way for them to be, but the fact that here you can see damage to infantry has increased from 62 to 125 again. Zone Troopers, I've always liked the fact that you can kill them with riflemen, militants, shockwaves and flames. Now they do really well against those again. This actually does benefit the Zone Troopers, as they still now lack non-tech counters. I'd argue that yes, it makes the Zone Troopers that little bit less punchy. It means they do more they do bigger damage in less frequent hits. Sorry, I couldn't think of my words there. They do bigger damage in less frequent hits, rather than smaller damage in more frequent hits, which means that theoretically, riflemen and stuff, yes, can get in there a little bit better. Two rifleman squads. Yeah. By the way, I'm thinking 2 rifleman squads against the Zone Trooper should do better now. Certainly things like drone swarms do as well. So, it's kind of a back and forth, and I know you guys are watching this thinking, what on earth is he talking about? It's because I'm trying to think about this one. Yes, I said I've recorded this video a couple of times now, but I'm still thinking about these patches, and sometimes, a little bit of extra thought, I start to doubt myself. And in this case, I'm going to talk about the Cyborg one here as well, because it is a revert. Same with the Zone Troopers and the Cyborgs, they're back to how they were before the last patch. To me, I've not had problems with Zone Troopers or Cyborgs personally. I don't really run them. I have done a few times just for video footage recently. But to me, I think it's not necessarily a bad change. I don't like the fact that they're just reverting back. I think there could have been something done to that. I think taking it back to how they were before, but still leaving the damage to infantry down, would have been a way forward. I don't get why they gave the damage to infantry back, but there we go. And finally, with the Chemical Buggy, as with the MLRS, players are using this to kill units that they shouldn't. This will help the Chem Buggy keep its strength and lean into its specialization. Vehicle damage has been toned down just a little bit. This means that like cyber wheels, war dogs, rhinos, buggies, that kind of thing don't just die as they, they don't take quite as much damage as they pass a chem buggy, or as a Chem Buggy passes them, as the case usually is. I don't seriously think that the devs are suggesting that there are people out there who were building Chem Buggies purely to deal with like enemy vehicles. I don't think that's the case, but they've kind of spotted that some of these units, like the Chem Buggy and the MLRS, are killing things that they shouldn't be killing that little bit too fast, which does actually answer a fairly important question. Giga Cannons. We've talked about Giga Cannons in the past, and about how much damage they do to infantry. I think now with the charge-up mechanic to Giga Cannons, and how delicate Giga Cannons are, and the fact that Giga Cannons require a bit more of a finicky line of sight thing, whereas the MLRS has like a barrage, it can fire over rocks and obstructions, I think this finally answers the question. Yes, the Giga Cannons damage to infantry is indeed intended. So that kind of deals with that. And in fairness, the MLRS and Giga Cannon, I've used both extensively in the past. I prefer the MLRS simply because it does that kind of over barrage, and with the MSV it's a solid choice. The Giga Cannon, on the other hand, I'm talking about units that aren't even in these patch notes now, but you get my point. You get my point. It answers the question. Chem Buggies should not have been, doing as much damage as they were to vehicles. That's been toned down a little bit. So overall thoughts and impressions on this one are pretty much positive. GDI definitely, I think, has been a bit too dominating with the MSV Fortress deck. To see that that's been toned down a little bit, you now need to have the Shatterers in position rather than just running them up and down the field. Now they're going to take a bit more incidental damage. It takes them a little bit longer to move into position, so units that are if you've got infantry that are trying to push past a Shatterer and, they're exploiting the fact that it was positioned badly. That you can actually exploit bad positioning against a Shatterer now. That's what I'm trying to get at here. That's good to me. This tones down the MSV Fortress deck a little bit. If you're running that deck, it's still going to be viable. Your slingshots are still amazing. Your MLRS still blow up incoming vehicles like nothing. I prefer Predators in the Fortress deck personally, just for that little bit of extra mobility, but the MLRS does it solidly. It's still going to do it solidly. The Shatterer is still solid. The MSV is still solid. Zone Troopers, Cyborgs, if you're running those as a tech splash at the moment, 100%, they're still great units. They just counter a little bit easier now, which is important. If you're winning just because your unit is overpowered, are you even really winning? Anyway, so that's my thoughts and opinions on this particular balance patch. I always welcome your thoughts and opinions. I love to hear your thoughts and what you think this all means, and how you think this will change things down in the comment section below or on the Gaming Galleon Discord. As usual, in just a moment you're going to see a list of my Patreons. If you want to support this channel, you can either be like them and come join me on Patreon. There are some cool little perks there. Nothing overly major because I wanted to keep my Patreon fairly open access to all, and not really gate that much to it, but I am open to opinions. If there's stuff that you guys want from me that I reckon I can do, then yes, I'm willing to add extra Patreon tiers and up the game there. Or of course, come join us on the Gaming Galleon Discord. If you do want to support the channel otherwise, though, please just let ads play through. Don't click skip ad if you can. Just let it play through. It does give me that little bit of extra revenue, which really, really helps support this channel. That little bit of extra revenue helps pay for my subscriptions to, like KineMaster for editing. It helps pay for our internet out here. It puts fuel in the generator, like now when we're in a power cut, so that I can still be recording and doing stuff. And it does ultimately also put food on the table for me. Anyway, I am rambling on. You have got my thoughts on the patch notes now, so let's call this a day here. Thanks for watching, guys. Happy sailing, and see you on the battlefield.